We do pretty much everything online these days, right? But have you ever stopped to wonder if the web is actually built for, well, everyone? It feels like in this age of amazing tech, it should be a given. But the reality is, huge chunks of the internet are basically unusable for millions of people. And that's the big, messy problem we're going to dig into today. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the size of this accessibility gap. Then, we're going to zoom in on the people who are building our digital world, the developers of the future. We'll uncover this really weird disconnect between knowing a problem exists and knowing how to fix it, find out where our education system is dropping the ball, and then, finally, talk about a real path to making things better. To get a sense of just how big this is, let's start with a number: 1 billion. That's how many people around the world live with some form of disability, according to the World Health Organization. We're talking about 15% of the entire global population who could be hitting a wall every time they try to use a website or an app that just wasn't built with them in mind. So, what are we even talking about when we say web accessibility? The core idea is actually super simple. The web should just work for everyone. It means designing things so that people with disabilities can use them, understand them, and interact with them. And a lot of the time, it's not some crazy complex thing. It can be as basic as adding a text description to an image so a screen reader can see it, or putting captions on a video. Okay, so that brings us to our first section, the web's accessibility gap. Because even though that goal seems really straightforward, the reality on the ground, it's a whole different story. And the data, wow, it's pretty stark. One study found that a full 70% of websites were missing even the most basic accessibility features. Let that sink in. 7 out of every 10 websites are potentially just broken for a huge number of users. And here's the kicker, the part that's really frustrating. This is not a new problem, and it's not like we don't have the solutions. The main rulebook for this stuff, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG for short, has been around since 1999. We've had the instruction manual for decades. Which, leads to the billion-dollar question. If we have the rules, why isn't anybody following them? To figure that out, we've got to look at the people who are actually building this stuff, the developers. This is the big why that a 2021 research paper decided to tackle. We've had the guidelines for ages, so what is the deal? Why is the web still so fundamentally broken for so many people? Now the researchers had a pretty good idea where to start looking. For years, one of the main suspects has been a serious lack of developer training. The theory goes that the problem isn't the rules themselves, it's that the people actually writing the code are never really taught how to make things accessible in the first place. So, to test this theory, the study went straight to the source, student developers. They basically asked them 3 simple things. Hey, do you know about these guidelines? Does your college education actually help you get them? And the big one, does it make you more likely to actually use them in your work? And the answers they got pointed to the absolute core of the problem. It's this massive difference between being aware that an issue exists and actually having the knowledge to do something about it. Okay, so check this out. It's like a tale of 2 completely different realities. When the student developers were asked, they said, yeah, we've had a moderate amount of exposure to the idea of accessibility. They've heard of it. But then, when you ask them about the actual technical guidelines, the specific rules, their familiarity just falls off a cliff. It was incredibly low. The numbers really paint the picture here. On a 5-point scale, their general awareness was a 3 out of 5. So 60%. Not bad. But then, you look at their familiarity with the actual rules to implement it, the score plummets to just 0.69 out of 3. That's only 23%. They've heard the song, but they have no idea how to play it. And you can hear this frustration right from the students themselves. This one person said it perfectly. They touch on it in class, but it's just a brief mention. It's not a real lesson. They're not getting into the nitty-gritty of how to actually make this stuff work for people. So this brings us right to the heart of it all, what we're calling the education disconnect. We have to understand why this huge gap between knowing and doing is happening inside our universities. First, let's give credit where it's due. The study did find that taking development courses in college did significantly raise a student's general awareness. So education is succeeding at putting the concept on the map for the next generation of builders. That's a good thing. But, and this is a huge but, the analysis found that those same courses did not do much to improve their knowledge of the actual guidelines. So, students are walking out of college knowing about the problem, but they don't have the tools or skills to actually solve it. And the impact of this is massive. When you don't know the how, accessibility just becomes this nice-to-have thing, an optional goal, not a fundamental part of building something. The students said it themselves. They don't apply the rules because it's just treated as a side topic, something that was only covered briefly. But, okay, it's not all doom and gloom. The study didn't just point out what's broken, it also showed us a way to fix it. So let's look at how we can build a better curriculum and finally move forward. And what's really cool is that the students themselves basically gave us the roadmap. They suggested 4 key things. First, create personal connections. Let them meet people with disabilities to build real empathy. Second, talk about the business value. Show them it's not just a good deed, it's good business. Third, give them hands-on tools like checklists to make it easier. And finally, the big one, make it a required, graded part of their projects. This student quote just hits the nail on the head when it comes to the business side. It's not just about doing the right thing, it's a huge market opportunity. If your website isn't accessible, you're literally just turning away customers. Making your site work for everyone can mean more traffic, more users, more business, period. So when you boil it all down, what really gets students to act? Well, the data's pretty clear. Making it a graded course requirement is the #1 driver. But right behind that is empathy. That personal connection is a huge motivator. You combine those two with a solid business case and some easy-to-use tools, and suddenly you have a curriculum that actually works. And that really is the crucial takeaway from all this. If we really want to fix the web's massive accessibility gap, if we want to build a digital world that truly includes everyone, that work has to start in the classroom. So I'll leave you with this question. The next time you're scrolling through a site or using an app, just take a second and ask yourself, is this thing really built for everyone? And if the answer is no, what's it going to take for us to finally get there?